This episode is brought to you by Buzzshot, Peih-Gee's Playhouse, the Reality Escape Convention, and Patreon supporters like you.
Hey folks, David and Peih-Gee here. We're still in between seasons, working on season 12 of Reality Escape Pod. But in the meantime, we're freeing an episode from the Patreon. In this case, one of our Spoilers Club episodes.
Yeah, and if you don't know, the Spoilers Club is where we invite the creators of really iconic escape rooms and other immersive experiences to come on and talk about their game in detail, including the spoilers. There's a walkthrough of the game, but more importantly and more funnily, is that a word? I don't know. But they do give us a lot of behind the scenes director's cut style stories about making of the games. They're kind of like little case studies of the games, looking back, thinking about what worked, what didn't work. And these are really fun to kind of dig into the nitty gritty of a specific escape room or experience.
This episode, we have our buddy Nick Moran of Phantom Peak and formerly of Time Run in London, and he's going to be spoiling the Lance of Longinus. This game doesn't exist anymore, so you might as well listen to this episode because you're not going to go play it. This was his first escape room. In my opinion, I think you can make a very strong argument that this is the most important game in the development of what we would consider high-end European escape rooms. It's fantastic. It's really interesting. He makes a lot of design choices in it that he probably wouldn't make now, and he talks through all of that stuff. But this game was just a work of art, and I hope that you enjoy hearing all about it. If you like what you heard here, if you like what we're doing at the Spoilers Club, back us at the $15 level, the Spoilers Club level, and you will get this in addition to our other Reality Escape Pod bonus episodes that come in at the $5 level, plus a whole slew of other perks, and you'll be supporting us and helping us make all of the media that we make for you. Enjoy! Welcome to the Reality Escape Pod Spoilers Club. Today, Peih-Gee and I are joined by our old friend Nick Moran, and we are going to be spoiling Time Run's Lance of Longinus.
Hello everybody, it's obviously pretty old news, Time Run, so if you're like really upset by this, then you really got to live in the modern day, because Time Run closed in 2018, guys. If you're upset by a dead game, then you need to go outside and kiss grass. Don't just touch.
But Nick, I'm upset that it's a dead game. It was a good game.
It didn't deserve to die, but it died because it lived in London, and in London, every single thing that ever exists will be made into an apartment block if it stands still long enough. So it's like Longinus, little accidental pun there. But It's in the end, London's real estate market for commercial property is very competitive and very difficult. For example, Phantom Peak closes this Saturday and will be demolished to be made into apartments.
Look, this is like the carcinification of real estate. All things must turn into luxury apartments.
I consider myself the harbinger of gentrification. Wherever I go, the place does gentrify. I create it. So if you want me to go and create anything anywhere, I will make it the luxury place, the next place that hip young things want to live. So I suggest like the moon. It'll be colonized in no time.
Okay, so if you guys are just joining us and you're a little confused about what's going on, we are going to be talking about Time Run's Lance of Longinus, which opened back in 2018, but it does not exist.
Closed back in 2018.
Oh, it closed in 2018. So when did it open?
2014.
Oh, yeah. So super, super early on. Most of you probably would not have had a chance to play this. Like me, I have not played this either. So I will be the audience sit-in.
This game was obnoxiously early for the level of quality that it produced. It was an astounding achievement of a game. It is a modern escape room built in a time where people were throwing locks on IKEA furniture, and in my opinion set the tone for what you think of as high-end European escape rooms. If you talk to the folks from Sherlock, the folks from Dark Park, Chris Latner, all of these people were inspired by Lance of Longinus. And so that's the game we're going to be exploring today.
Where should I begin, guys? Should I begin with how it all started?
Yeah, let's start with how did this come about, and how did you go from playing, I think, like Hint Hunt to saying I'm going to make a elaborate story-driven escape room in a robust and beautiful set with characters?
How do most things happen in life to individual people? It's a series of astonishing coincidences glued together by a lack of talent. And that's really what I consider as the essential part of my career. Spin back to, so I started off from a theatre background, and I did a master's in writing for stage and broadcast media. I worked as a freelance scriptwriter, doing for lots of things, for like video games, like for corporate clients, a lot of stuff for Sony and PlayStation. Anyway, loads of different things. But in my spare time, I worked with a lot of people producing kind of immersive experiences to launch brands, to launch The Witcher 4, always with the idea of creating gamified theatre that you can play. And at the same time, there was the rise of all the escape room stuff. That was sort of happening like in the corner of my eye. I remember when I first played Hint Hunt in, what was it? I can't remember, 2011, 2012, when it just opened in London. It was amazing. We played it with my friends, and I booked immediately with those same people to play it again. We played it another 4 or 5 weeks later. And so we met some people who wanted to do something like looking to get into the gamified world and things like that. And we said, how about we do something no one's really done before? Kind of make something that feels like you're really going into an immersive experience that has the underpinnings and powered by the system of an escape room. And they said, sure, here's the money. That was really unexpected. That's the most successful pitch of my life, and I have never again managed to pitch as well. And I don't know who that person was then who did that, but I want to be him again. Also, younger and cooler and a little tiny bit sexier. But anyway, let's not talk about that. I'm still quite hot, so it's okay. But anyway, and that's really how it happened. We met the partners in the project, were really great, and they really wanted to take this leap into the unknown. And I was working at the time with Josh Ford and Ben Mason, both wonderful people who came on that project. And along the way, we brought Sheena Patel into the fold, and together we said, let's produce a thing called Time Run. And that was based on this other time travel experience we'd launched, and other things called the Time Emporium, which was like this traveling time travel-y show that was like a bit of an open world experience, actually more Phantom Peih-Gee in the way that is than Time Run is. And we said, let's do something linear, exciting, cinematic. And the answer was the Lance of Longinus, which built on the foundational character that we'd had from this other previous time travel game, but then try to do something different and try to do something within the space that no one really done before. And the goal of Lance of Longinus as a story, as an experience, is that your new time runners who are coming to work for Luna Fox, who is a time traveler, the first woman to ever discover time travel, and her robotic assistant Babbage, who will be your assistant on your way, need you to recover the Lance of Longinus, which is a mythical artifact, lots of dangerous powers, Indiana Jones style, that you can't let fall into the wrong hands.
Is the Lance of Longinus, is that the lance that pierced the side of Jesus Christ when he was on the crucifix?
Yeah, of course. This is all about, like, you know, in the end, my goal is to kill God, as every younger boy wishes to. And this was like my chance of exploring it within the confines of a game powered by someone else's money. So I just thought, let's see how close I can get to, you know, killing the Almighty. But yes, I mean, the Lance of Longinus is a kind of classic, lost, mythical artifact, you know, which you've seen in books, cinema, Neon Genesis Evangelion, of course, the classic anime from the 90s that really set the tone for modern anime. And if you haven't seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, where have you been? You've missed out on that and Time Run. You are scum. So anyway, so the idea was with the Lance of Longinus, we picked it as, it is a MacGuffin, absolutely a MacGuffin. That's what's always been about that.
What's a MacGuffin?
A MacGuffin is an object that drives the plot that actually inherently isn't essential for the plot. You know, you're looking for the missing X or Y, but really it's the journey along the way and the trials and tribulations that get you there, which is the actual meat of the story.
It's the magical, important thingy that everybody wants, but nobody actually cares what it is. It's just the important thingy.
Okay, yeah, the MacGuffin is the magical thing that people are looking for across time and space, and that was the Lance of Longinus. But my background was classics. I studied Latin and ancient Greek at university, so I've always been interested in the ancient world. So a lot of those things that I was very interested in exploring were a lot of ancient artifact stuff, because also I didn't want to do a lot of the things that I saw in a lot of escape rooms and a lot of things at the time, that kind of Orientalist kind of thing where you're searching for things from other cultures and things like that. I was like, let's make it firmly rooted in sort of European culture. You're looking for European things across space and time that are not problematic to get into a museum. I don't want that Temple of Doom feeling that we've all had watching it, where you're like, wow, this is racist. And that was one of the key things I did not want to do. Do not make racist games. That was unobjective, and I feel I succeeded.
And don't pillage other people's cultures.
Well, don't pillage cultures that you don't necessarily understand. I think at least you could be an expert in something and then feel like you understand it and do its sensitivity. But I didn't want to take something that I didn't understand and didn't feel I understood the context of. And the war against God was something I fought against my whole life. So I thought that's something I could really get behind with my old friend Satan. Anyway, that was like the gestation of it. But that was sort of only part of the Time Run conundrum, as it was. Not just designing it, the story. It was how to make something that no one really had done before in the space, because there were no rules. There was no tech that could power it. There was no real escape room market for the things and gadgets and things you could make. So Time Run was really like, how do we even build this with no knowledge of building escape? We've never built an escape room before. So we've gone 0 to 100 in step 1.
Now, can I ask a quick question? So you're saying, escape rooms like that didn't really exist back then, but you were already involved in the immersive theater scene in London back then. So what was that like? Can you paint a picture for kind of where the immersive theater scene was at that point in time?
Really terrible. It was awful, cringe, embarrassing, and incredibly sincere. I'm a very sincere man, and so I did really well in it, as you can imagine. Kind of po-faced. It was a lot of early Secret Cinema days, things like that. So Secret Cinema was still like such a pioneer back then, and it was really pushing the boundaries, and Punch Drunk and all that was obviously been doing shows for years. But there was a big fringe immersive theatre movement. There was incredible games like Heist, done by Dean Rogers, at the time I met Dean, obviously, which was fantastic. Like a whole building like Heist where you hid from guards, multiple different endings.
Well, that sounds amazing.
It was really good. So what it was is like mostly the immersive theatre scene was bad, but there were sort of isolated creators doing interesting things because post-financial crisis in London, there was a lot more empty buildings and it was a lot easier to take risk. So there was like a big groundswell of lots of interesting people doing lots of interesting things with a kind of general background noise of rubbish. I think it was spikes of light in the darkness.
It was like the early escape room scene.
It is like the early escape room scene. And I think the only escape rooms I played before Time Run, I'd played both Hint Hunt games and one Clue Quest game. The fourth game I ever played was Time Run, because it was the one I did.
So let's dig into the experience of visiting Time Run. When you approached Time Run, you didn't have the normal onboarding experience. There was an incredible, beautiful circular door on the side of a warehouse building. It looked like a portal to somewhere that was closed. So talk me through this approach and the entry and what happens once you're inside.
The idea with Time Run was always to make it so that the moment your experience started, you were in world. Literally from the moment the portal, the doors opened, that you were in kind of the laboratory of Luna Fox, being met by her assistant, one of her other assistants, Aubrey Defoe, a charming man in a purple waistcoat who was training you up for your adventure across time and space. As he often said, we have a lot of problems across time and space, and we throw enough bodies and corpses at the problems, eventually they do go away. So strong likelihood of death. Death was talked about quite a lot in that briefing. But the goal really from a kind of pure design point of view was to say, I'm a person who, I think by nature, I think about form quite a lot. I went to these escape rooms like Hint Hunt and Clue Quest, and I found the experience of those lobbies where someone comes in and takes you from a lobby a little bit like a shoe store, where you go in and you sit down and someone's like, what size are you? And it just didn't feel right. It felt retail. And I was like, we are not in the business of retail. We're in the business of experience. And people have paid for an experience, and the moment they arrive, their experience should begin. They are not coming to sit down in a lobby and be like, at your convenience, they're going to be taken into the next room, which I still see across things, and I still think is not, for me, the correct way of doing things from an experiential point of view.
What you did, from my perspective, was invert the lobby from being a thing that was there to serve the company to being something that was there to serve the customer's experience.
Exactly. And I always had strong opinions on value. I always believe in giving people high value. And the answer is that briefing can last as long as short as we want to make sure that the games flow together nicely, or we need to sort of hold someone up. But you are being entertained the whole time because that's what you've paid for.
David, was that the first time that you had kind of a cold opening, or, when you first step foot inside the door and the experience starts right away, being greeted by somebody in character?
For me, no, but I played Lance of Longinus and Celestial Chain, both time run games, after the closure had been announced. So I played them, it would have been fall 2017 was when I played them. So I would have already gone to, say, Strange Bird and played The Man from Beyond. There were other instances in the early days. Spark of Resistance was another game that did that. I played that in January of 2015. So this wasn't an unfamiliar thing to me. It was still extraordinarily rare. And playing Time Run, knowing how long it had been open, that was the thing that was really astounding.
I mean, it's still rare now, let's be honest.
It was more rare then.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's not to say that we couldn't now, looking back, I wouldn't do things differently about how that briefing worked and all these kind of things and learnings from it of things that we built and we couldn't unbuild. But it was about creating the space that got you into the world immediately, but then we gave you a good 10 minutes in there for you to transition out of your reality and into this one, where you understood the rules, you were given a kind of little slideshow on what the world of Time Run is. And rather than sort of raring you up, it was almost like about relaxing you, rubber banding you before we sprung you onto the next step. And that was always the way we thought about it. Get people comfortable. Maybe they've had a difficult day. Maybe they haven't. The way I always talk about it is I always divide customers in my head into super enthusiastic, sort of the tag-alongs, and the people who are just unwilling. We want to make sure the people who do not want to be there are ready to have a good time as much as anyone else. We've warmed them up, we've made them feel comfortable, or made them feel ready to go. And that's always been what that was about. But also about regulation, because, of course, Lance of Longinus was pipelined before anyone else had, as far as I really understand in kind of the escape room world.
Five Wits was pipelined from day one as well, and predates escape rooms as we know them. That was it. As far as I was concerned, even by 2018, pipelining was just Five Wits and you.
Did you design it from the get-go to be pipelined?
Yes, we opened with it pipelined. I have never designed a non-pipelined game. Sounds luxurious. Sounds pretty easy, honestly, comparatively. I know that might say it's much harder to design a pipelined game, as anyone who designed a pipeline game can tell you, because you have to consider a lot more things. You have to consider it is much harder than get people in, let them have a nice time and get out. So Lance of Longinus, from a booking slot point of view, could take a new group every 45 minutes. But actually that could be squeezed down to 30 if we need to. That was tight, difficult. Compared to, obviously, we didn't use the language of standard escape rooms. We had, rather than like games masters, we had monitors and resetters. There were separate roles doing separate things within the experience. So there'll be a resetter across those two games, be resetting the whole time, and monitors who are monitoring the games, and hosts. And that's the way we divided up the back end of the game. So everyone had their own role in the kind of the cogs of the machine of Time Run. And they all knew what minutes they had to hit between to make the experience work.
I mean, that's incredible, because David often talks about carbon dating the older games, because games back then would regularly take sometimes an hour to reset. They had so many little fiddly bits, nothing was glued into place. So players would come along and mess up stuff that weren't even part of the puzzles that had to be reset also, right?
I would say the long end of a reset in the early days was probably 30 minutes, but that's still extraordinary. Time Run and with Lance, Nick, you showed a level of foresight in that game that I'm still surprised by looking back on it. So let's keep on digging deeper into this as you go through this onboarding process. How do we end up in the game?
So after you go in the game, you go into a dark room, and then two time portals appear side by side, and Luna Fox and Babbage talk across you, rear projected in a black space, like a magical, talking from nowhere. It was really nice, simple effect that really worked. And then the time portal, which opens up, nice smoke, and with actual time, kind of whirring time portal.
The time portals were basically LED lights that were wrapping around a doorway. I think
an oval
you rounded
doorway.
Out the corners.
It was a full oval doorway.
It was a full oval. Okay, I remembered it being roundish, but yeah, full oval doorway. and with a smoke effect. You really felt like you were going into a portal. It was more than I'm walking in through a door.
Oh, definitely. And that was always like really key. Josh, for example, was really obsessed with that portal. That was something he couldn't.
You don't build that without really having someone there who cares a lot to do that, because it's not the easiest thing to go and construct. It's not the thing you would do by default.
No, especially since on the day when we opened, one of our cleaners fell inside the portal and broke it. But anyway, don't worry about that. That was very frustrating. Literally day one. And he fell inside, panicked because he got trapped. He got trapped between two pieces of wood where he could just move out. Anyway, it wasn't trapped. He just got panicked.
Because he was in the time portal.
He just got panicked. And it was all these things, like everything was on actuators, so that when the time portal opened, the black doors slid silently in the dark and the time portal just felt it was there from nothing. And then the doors slid behind you, very much like trying to think about everything invisibly, all this kind of stuff. Then you went to your first time period, which was the future, 2134. So you went to 3 different time periods across Time Run. You went to the future, you went to the past, and then you went to a terrible time in the 1940s, which some say are coming back. And those were like the 3 different time periods. In the second game, you went to 5 different time periods, but that is another conversation for another time.
That is. So let's start with this 2134. What environment do you end up in at the start of this journey?
The idea is that you're looking for where the Lance of Longinus was buried, so you have to use sort of a future space station to find out where it was, because it has the technology to scan the Earth. So you go to this kind of abandoned space station, unpick a little bit of the lives that have gone there. Something's gone very, very wrong for those people. A kind of mild touch of the space horror, which I was very interested in. Still am interested in. Love space horror. You get the subtext of the story is the captain has done something really bad to the crew. As is often the case with captains in space. Actually, that always happens with captains in space stations in the future. They maybe should just abolish the position. I think that's probably a safer way. If they abolish, perhaps it's something to do like nominative determination. The captain will always decapitate. That's what people should say. Anyway, the room had this like large kind of centralized touch table computer, which is kind of like the center of the thing that you're unlocking as you go through and find the various different crew's things. And each one has lots of different audio diaries. You learn about what they're doing, what they're thinking, their lives, their relationships across it to try and activate the scanner to then find out where the Lance of Longinus was buried. And that's like the first stage. You know, kind of this kind of quite gleaming white room, very clean, lots of LED strips, not especially big in the grand scheme of things, quite small, but starting off quite tight, so that the next room of scale felt particularly impressive. That was always the idea of playing with space and scale. Of the rooms, it was actually my favorite of the spaces, because I really liked the sense of story that you got from like those people, like 4 different characters, 4 different audio diaries, a nice little conclusion to the room that if you cared to follow, there was a subtextual story, and if you just want to do some puzzles and just follow it, there was
What's the gist of that story?
So if I recall, but this is again long time, this is like an orbiting space station. It picked something up that kind of like from various different space debris that the captain became obsessed with, and then the captain became quite paranoid and basically killed the rest of the crew. That was the kind of like subtext of that little story. And it was only told across 4 different audio diaries, and the final one was the captain. So you got to see the captain from 3 different characters' point of view as they go through, even though they're all like focused on different things. And the final thing is like the captain, because you need the captain, like the retinal scan. The final thing is the captain's eyeball, because the captain is obsessed with like sight and seeing, all of this kind of thing. So it's a nice little survival horror, kind of System Shock 2-y in the kind of tone, which I really liked, because again, we got to tell this in only 12 minutes, short little micro story that was quite fun. Not fun, well, fun for me, maybe not fun for the people who got killed.
It was fun to play.
It was fun to play, yes. One thing I really liked is in that game, it was just nice little touches, all the stuff with the various different like jars, which is like the gloves in, and there was like on a little maglock system to get it out. Lots of nice little uses of tech, like the touch table in the center was massive TV with a kind of touch interface on top. Made it feel really futuristic, and like LCARS is the Star Trek interface. So LCARS inspired Star Trek style interface, not so Star Trek-y, but inspired by where there were 4 different levels to unlock as you go forward into the security system, each of which has audio diaries and little text things. It was a really nice way of having a central thread through the room narratively that really helped you tie it together at the end, and also you know where you're going. Desire, obstacle, solution. I know what's on my way, I know what to get in front of, and I know when I've done it. And when you've completed it all, the game is complete and the room is done. And one thing that we had to do, to talk about pipelining for a second. goes back to the operational things. And time run, one of the key things we said at the beginning is you can't take things between time portals and time periods, because that might destroy the universe. And obviously, we didn't want people to take things between different time portals because it was a real arse to reset. So there were lots of little textual story rules we put in just to make our lives a lot easier. And we were like, and when the time portal opens, you've got to get out of there as quickly as possible. And the answer is sometimes it was pretty damn tight between groups. So you've got to go, go, go. And also, time run, it wasn't a 60-minute game. Time run was actually, on average, the average team complete time run in 68, 69 minutes. So it's actually about a 70-minute game. Back then, it was I think it's one of the first post-60-minute games, and we used to let teams run up to 73 minutes. That was our fail state.
70-minute games were unusual in those early days. I know Locurio's The Vanishing Act was 70 minutes. There were random 70-minute games here and there. Usually they were far better than the norm. That was my general observation, was games that had more than a 60-minute clock were really good at a rate that was far more than random.
I think also, nowadays, the longer games in general tend to be better because it's a confidence thing. You're confident you can entertain people to that long. I think it's inherent confirmation bias.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why longer games tend to be better, and it's not the game length that is the cause that is an effect. There's a lot of ways that a longer game that is bad could just feel worse and feel boring and feel like
I've had some terrible long game experiences, as we all have, where it just felt like you're going to die and I'm trapped in there forever.
But generally, I think it's a sign that the owners care. A lot of times I know it's because they made so much content that they saw people were taking longer and they're like, I just didn't want to cut any of it. Like, I liked what I made. I wanted to keep it in. And so they're like, we're just going to make it a little bit longer, even though it's probably more economical to have 60-minute games.
Yes, I think that's often true. And after that first thing, time portal opens, and one of the things that happens is the room starts to pulse. To go again, I'm going to zoom in and zoom out. That's just how this is going to work.
And before you do that, one thing I want to note is that each one of these spaces, each time you time jump, you're using a lot of physical space. You have these big round portals with these sliding doors, and each transition space is taking up quite a lot of square footage, and you really are feeling like you're moving through spaces.
It's really essential to do that. Time run was from a pure square footage point of view, inefficient. Efficient from an experience point of view. But also, part of the reason why is because we knew that space between those games meant that people were less likely to hear each other. Because there is a high chance that two people were in adjacent rooms. Because if you're at 45 minutes in that second room and someone's coming into that first room, you're going to be next to each other for a very short amount of time. So one of the things that we were really obsessed with Time Run is that Time Run's one of its advantages, it had really good lights, sounds, effects, because Time Run, unlike all the games that were made at the time, was built on QLab. It was entirely an escape room which entirely ran on theatre queuing software and powered by MIDI triggers, which, by the way, is insane. It is something you should not do. And if you do that, you are wasting money. But it was the only way we knew how. So Time Run was technically, from a pure design point of view, each of those three spaces were distinct computers with distinct QLab instances. So they had their own sights, the sound, their own lighting boards, their own lighting desk. They could do quite a lot within that. So they could use smoke, lights, all that, because that's what QLab is designed for. It's theatre queuing software. So that was one of the kind of huge advantages, accidental advantages of us doing what we knew, which was theatre stuff. And that allowed us to make a more theatrical experience.
But why are you warning owners now against using it? Is it that it's really, it's not designed for escape rooms, it's very expensive, or what, why are you
It's expensive. So it is expensive for what it is. It is expensive.
It has also gotten more expensive since you were doing that.
Yeah, QLab is very good value for what it is. It's a very powerful piece of software, and you can do quite a lot with it. And I would advise you use it if you are on building a game on, say, Cogs or something like that, and you want to have a QLab lighting plugin that basically powers the lighting game across all your game. That's a really smart use of QLab. But to power interactivity, QLab is not designed for. It can do it. But what it has to do, it has to send MIDI notes. So it has to be like, I am playing note 44174. And it goes back and it says, I've heard this note and I'm going to play that. So that's what MIDI is. It's the same thing that keyboards play.
Of note, back in those late 20 teens, a large majority of my favorite games at the time were running on QLab. If I'm not mistaken, the Time Run games, QLab. The Dark Park games at the time, Q-Lab. Lab Rat at Hatch, Q-Lab. I'm pretty sure that The Man from Beyond at Strangebird, Q-Lab. And I attributed, initially I was like, wow, that is a weird coincidence because no one's running this. But the through line for that was that they were all theater people. And
yes.
It was theater people, from my perspective, who were leading the charge of injecting story and character and emotion into games. And so it's this sort of, again, another instance of this. Q-Lab wasn't the cause of these games being amongst my favorites of the era. It was an effect of theater people who were focusing on different things than the majority of escape room creators. That was the through line, and they knew how to use the software because they were theater people.
For us, it was also not just about what we knew, it was what we could find. The truth is, I looked into the off-the-shelf escape room software back then, and there was some stuff. It was awful. It was designed to just be like input, out. There was nothing that
input, out, and also your just display hints on a screen.
Exactly. All the stuff that I really hated, that kind of stuff. At least Q-Lab could do media. And I'm a media person by background. I'm a media background. I make videos. I'm good at making content. So the ability to make and display content was really essential from our point of view. And if you put in the constraints, must be able to do good lighting, must be able to do good sound, must be able to be easy off the shelf components, there really is no answer. It has to, at the time, Q-Lab or nothing. And that was that, and that's the way we went to. And that got even more complex in the second game.
So, David, we've talked about all of the things that make BuzzShot's new booking system so awesome. But one of my favorite parts is the fact that it is a flat monthly fee. There's no extra cuts or ticket sales.
Yeah, this is a pretty big deal because all of the ways that credit card processing works, it's this sort of death by paper cuts where you get hit by all of these different fees over and over again every single time there's a transaction. And the fact that BuzzShot has just eliminated that for escape room companies on their platform is fantastic.
I hate seeing service fee charge on the final bill because nobody likes feeling like they're getting nickel and dimed.
Oh, you don't love the feeling of when somebody tries to mimic Ticketmaster on their escape room website?
What's next? Resort fees?
Yeah, you don't like the cosplaying as Ticketmaster? Now, I love that BuzzShot is doing this. It's fantastic that this is part of their platform. No commissions and no booking fees. As of May 2026, they are currently offering early bird pricing, but it won't last long. So sign up today and lock in the best pricing for the next 2 years.
Nico Nefian from Miraculum had this to say. It was an immediate match. BuzzShot simplifies our customer service, which makes our experiences even more magical. BuzzShot is the secret weapon powering escape room businesses, and they're now offering a booking software. BuzzShot is truly a one-stop shop for running your escape room. Their booking system fully integrates with their waiver management software, creating a seamless ecosystem that's both easy for your employees to master while giving your customers the best experience possible. Repod listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/repod to learn more. We'll have link and details for you in the show notes.
Hey kid, you like some puzzles? We got some puzzles over on Peih-Gee's Playhouse, our podcast celebrating wordplay, brain teasers, and trivia, all with some pod friends.
In episode 40, Zach Sherwin joined us to talk about the Canterbury Tales. Our game was called Name Dropping, where we played with names that come from medieval occupations. The clue is, what's a first name still in use today that means a skilled craftsman who builds with brick and stone? Stay till the end to hear the answer.
Did you know that the Canterbury Tales was the precursor to today's rap battles? That's right. It's the story of a group of pilgrims who gather around the fire to tell stories. Most of them are in rhyming verse, and they're all trying to outdo each other, complete with insults. And some of them even have beef with each other.
This was one of my favorite episodes to record. We're available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Peih-Gee's Playhouse or click the link in our show notes. And did you get the answer to what's a first name still in use today that means a skilled craftsman who builds with brick and stone? It's a mason. Join us on Peih-Gee's Playhouse to play along.
Then you went, after that first room, into the second time period. And this is like the big wow room, which was the Tomb of Longinus. And this was meant to be like a proper cinematic midpoint in like a game. And I very much thought about like the structure of how this game is. It's the biggest room by far. It was like, I think 6 by 4 meters and really tall. Probably about 4 meters tall. 4 meters probably. So that's 20, 30 feet. So it felt like a big, tall room.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, and it was designed to feel like impressive. It was a beautiful kind of tomb space, and your goal was to do these 3 kind of ancient rituals to unlock the Tomb of Longinus. And there were these large statues of the gods that you had to move into various different places and put on different lights. 3 different puzzles, 3 different kind of, I guess what they were called. What would we call them back then? And they're like these murals that you had to move into place in order to reveal which lights you had to put the gods on. That was a real room which felt very physical and very crystal mazy a little bit. That was another thing that we discussed quite a lot. These were the 3 things that we thought. The first room was meant to feel like a video gaming in kind of its tone, like media, content, inspired by those things. The second room was meant to feel crystal mazy, large physical props that you moved into place. You meant to feel like you were doing things impactful that felt cool and exciting, and that you felt like, oh my God, this is amazing. And this kind of dark, exciting space with great sound. By the way, I had great sound in that room. Really great subwoofer.
It really did.
That's awesome. But also having like large puzzle pieces. You know, I feel like especially in the early days of escape rooms or even during that time period, a lot of puzzles were small. We're always hunched over tiny little things, you know, like one piece of paper, tiny little jigsaw pieces.
You had 6 foot tall stone statues that you were moving into place.
On casters.
On casters.
That's amazing. I love anything that's large scale.
So let's dig into this space. Describe it. Set the scene.
So you came in through the time portal, very smoky, but always a bit of smoke in the air in that space to make it feel dark, dingy, lit by hidden spots coming through like cuts in the stonework in the ceiling. It was meant to feel like a buried tomb, but buried somewhere where still shafts of light could visit. On one hand side, the left-hand side, there was the Tomb of Longinus, which was locked. You literally had to do these 3 rituals in order to do that. And all around the room were these towering statues that were all around there. And the first time you probably saw them, you thought, they're just fixed in place. There were these gongs that you had to play, 3 gongs, and there was a lot of sand because you had to use, there was a puzzle involving sand and a weight and like mirrors or pointing some light to somewhere. But what it was really about, that space, was about scale and about making you feel like everything. So you moved some pillars to point this kind of laser beam onto kind of a sun to move the sun mural. And then you had to move the gods into various positions. And in order to get the kind of like the light to come, you had to put sand in terms of a weighted thing that pulled down a hole on the wall, and a kind of light beam of light shone through that you put on all these mirrors on the various different pillars. The second one, there was a kind of large-scale jigsaw on the floor that you had to put together, and then you had to play the gongs in a kind of gong sequence. It wasn't a musical puzzle, but it was about one person calling out the sequence. Then you triggered the thing. Anyway, there were these multiple rituals which you had to do in order to move the various different things. And each one gave you a ball, which kind of went down a little chute and popped out into a part of the little shrine. When you put the 3 balls on the side of the tomb slowly slid open. And there was supposed to be the Lance of Longinus, but of course, the Lance of Longinus had been stolen many years before. So then Babbage comes in, who talks to you across. I not really talks about the characters, Luna and Babbage, but they're great people to spend time with. I wouldn't go for a drink with Luna. I think she's probably a bit of a dick. But Babbage is great fun. But Luna does not suffer fool's slap. Not a nice person.
These are like the most British names ever.
Luna Fox and Babbage, named for Charles Babbage, inventor of the computing machine, and one of Luna Fox's heroes in the kind of narrative of Time Run. And I will also have a very strong opinion about 2-syllable first names and 1-syllable second names. That's something I'm very, very keen on. I think there's a nice rhythm to it. So Luna Fox, Spectre and Vox. There's a thing I really like there because I think it's nice and dactylic from a kind of iambic pentameter point of view. Anyway.
I mean, Peih-Gee
I
Law,
agree.
great name.
I was just going to say, I agree
Peih-Gee
with
Law.
Nick.
Exactly. My name breaks those rules.
Mine does too.
Yeah, which is very annoying.
Pity me.
Yeah, I don't for that. But anyway, but that was one of the things I was really keen. And so once you'd done those 3 rituals and opened up the tomb, then like Babbage realized that, of course, it had been stolen by the reprehensible people who were obsessed, genuinely historically obsessed with getting mythical artifacts that had been stolen by, of course, the National Socialists, the Nazi Party of Germany, who, by the way, were very interested in mythical objects and paganism and the third, all that kind of stuff.
This is very much picking up where Indiana Jones left off, kind of building on top of this occult obsession of Hitler and his inner circle.
Exactly. And that was something they're obsessed with. And also, one of the things that I thought structurally is that you beat the Nazis at the end. What kind of... It is the best victory to have. You know, literally the worst people. It is the victory of victories, is to beat the Nazis who are... And also from a kind of purely structural point of view, you're journeying into the lion's den. You feel in danger. You feel unsafe. All these kind of things. And again, because I think about these things quite deeply, I didn't want you to go in Hitler's office. So you either go in the office of Albert Speer, who is Hitler's Minister for Armament and the architect of the New Berlin. Very complex, interesting character. By the way, if you want to read more about Albert Speer, I recommend reading Gitta Sereni's famous book, Albert Speer's Battle with Truth, which is a fascinating book about Albert Speer's failure to reconcile his personal history with his political history of being a leading Nazi. And what did he really know about all the things that happened? A very interesting book. And does Gitta Sereni lose her objectivity across that book? Almost certainly. Anyway, really fascinating thing. So it was about going into the lion's den. And that from as well as having Nazi banners, large painting of Hitler on the wall. And the first thing you find is the Lance of Longinus behind a kind of safe thing. So you know what you're supposed to do and you have to solve all the various things in the rest of the room. This was the only room with the padlock. This is the one padlock in Time Run. The only padlock. And this was meant to be, again, if we have those structural things. The first room meant to feel video gamey. The second room meant to feel crystal mazy and physical. This is the escape room, like escape room feeling room. And this was like the puzzliest room. And so it had like pieces of paper that you looked in for puzzles and things like that. A magnetic plumb line that you fished a key out of to open the padlock to get various different things. But ultimately what you were doing is trying to complete there was a large wooden jigsaw. It's actually really, to call it a jigsaw is unfair. It was a large...
It's this big jigsaw map in the middle of the room that you had to assemble.
Exactly. And it was the New Berlin because you're Albert Speer's office. And one of the things that was on the desk at the beginning was like the key to the safe is hidden in the map of the New Berlin. So as you're going through that space, you're completing the map of the New Berlin, you're putting it in place. And it was a very hard, complex jigsaw. Probably a little bit of a mistake, and I probably would have made it a bit easier on round 2, because it was one of the key parts where people failed within the experience. And you were putting it all into place, and once you got it all right, we triggered a UV, which is escape. Like I was like, you've got to have in escape, you've got to have UV at some point, and that revealed different numbers on top of the thing, which is the numbers for the safe. And you got the Lance of Longinus, and you got out of there, and you got into a debrief room, and you got to be debrief with Luna and Babbage, who were like, you won, you beat the Nazis. But if you didn't win, there was also another ending. So your individual timer in Time Run, we didn't give you a timer at all. I didn't believe in giving people a timer because partly I want to be able to control their experience, not them. And so what you got is in your briefing, you had a little timer inside a little holder, and one person became like the person with the holder. And it was a little like wind up 60-minute timer, which by the way was inaccurate to about 10 minutes. So pity people who use these for ovens. They are very poorly made clockwork timers, but kind of nice, like almost old school feeling. And if that went off in that room, then your time had run out and you got to use it as like a bomb to destroy the room and destroy the Lance before you left. So you got to put it on the safe, and you got out of there, and as the door closed, lights, sound, just before it closed, smoke, boom. So either way, even if you lose, the Nazis don't win, because I couldn't have an ending where the Nazis won. I think, forgive me, guys, I didn't want them to win. And that was always the final objective of the game, and that was the kind of the way it concluded. And there were the 2 alternate endings. So it left people a failure but a success. I didn't want that thing where people, you go into the room, it's like, sorry guys, you ran out of time. How was it?
And the Nazis won.
And the Nazis won. Gonna give us 5 stars on TripAdvisor, please?
That's a great solution to a fail state because it's still pretty fun to blow stuff up.
It's still pretty fun to blow stuff up. There was good ending and there was bad ending. And if you did the good ending, Luna and Babbage were like, well done, you did it. And the main thing is the Nazis didn't win.
Either way, you're foiling the Nazis. Yeah.
Either way, you're foiling the Nazis because they're the bad guys. They're super bad. Again, a lot of the things in Time Run, I'm not saying that Time Run, not long as it's a perfect game, of course not. But what it did, I think, I think the thing I'm most proud of back then, not just the way we built it, but a lot of the thinking was right about how we did it. Like, we got a lot of the thinking about what we did. We didn't make many real errors on those kind of things. Would I necessarily do a room with Nazis in again? Probably not. But I thought a lot about it at the time, and I was like, if Indiana Jones does it, which is arguably the greatest action-adventure movie of all time, I suspect we can do it. And provided you don't lose to the Nazis, I think it's okay. And that was always my thinking. Was it a risk?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a surprising moment when you emerge from the antiquity scene in your second act and you find yourself in a Nazi office with the swastika on the wall. That was like, oh, okay, we have changed to a new location. But I do think the fact that the game was so clear that it was not celebrating these people and that they were, in fact, the enemy, that helped a lot. The framing and the way that it was handled was a lot better than, let's say, other instances of Nazi paraphernalia that I've seen in other escape rooms where it was less clear whether the owner just really had a thing for Nazis.
Yes, my eBay was very weird for a while afterwards.
Oh, no.
I bet it was.
I got a lot of things from people that afterwards I'm like, why did they have all those swastikas? I should have thought differently at the time.
Probably you ended up on a watch list or two also.
Probably a watch list of 50. But yes, at the time, I didn't really think about that. And that really was like, I think I am unsure personally that I would do that again.
If someone were to ask me if this was a good idea now, I would definitely say no. In 2014, I would have been
equivocated, maybe.
I would have been hesitant, but I would definitely say that the culture is not where it was in 2014, broadly speaking. And so, yeah, I would not encourage this design choice in the present day.
Yes, I would certainly agree. And that's one of the things that I've not thought long and hard about, because it's not like I've got a building and I'm building Time Run. It's something that sort of I've idly wondered how I would fix it as a kind of design thing.
Nick, I had a question about the pipelining aspect. I know that you said you wanted to give the players a little bit more time. If they needed the time, you wanted to let them have it. But what do you do when there's a group bumping up against them and, the group ahead of them is being really slow, they're way behind? Like, did you just allow yourself a bigger cushion of time for that? Or did you have ways of either speeding up the team by hinting them more or slowing down the team that's behind them? How did you deal with that issue?
Firstly, I'm a strong believer in hinting for flow. That's like an ethos that I strongly believe in. I like hints in a game. If someone feels that I am slow at the beginning, for me, I was always like, hint fast. Like with my team, I was like, hint quickly at the beginning to get them going. Because once they're going, they get there. They will find their way through. And we knew the sticking points. Thing is, there was a sticking point in the first room that was quite difficult. Like, good teams got it, but bad teams did not. And so what it was is we knew the constants and we knew the variables. And it's about hinting for that for bad teams, leaving good teams to it, but be ready with it if they needed it. So it's about hinting / cluing. I can't remember. I know people have different opinions on the lingo. I don't care. But for flow, that was something that I was very keen on. And also make sure that first room never went beyond 18 minutes. That was like the real issue. That second room, we could contract it. And sometimes what we'd do is we'd just go in and we'd be like, this is a one gods team. You're supposed to do the gods 3 times. This team would only do it once.
Oh, so you had some adjustable difficulty.
not very manual adjustable difficulty. We'd just be like, when this team goes, I'm just doing all the balls at the same time. And this team are really dumb. So they hit a gong, they get all the balls. And the people are like, we hit a gong and we got everything. They wouldn't notice. They wouldn't notice. They didn't know. They didn't know what was going on. That room, we could make 7 minutes. We could make 40. So that room was like where we got time. And once in the final room, it doesn't matter because we can fail them at any point. Fail them and get them out. So it was always about, to be honest, it was like, don't lose time in the first room. Make sure the second room is the right length. And also, sometimes they're a good team, but like we were like, hey, we cut one gods, which we can do, but they'll get back on track. And they will never notice. So that was always the way we did it.
The trend nowadays for a lot of companies is, every team makes it through. We want to have 100% success rate because we want, our players to just get the full and complete experience. So did you have that thought in mind back then, though? Because clearly you're all about hinting customers through certain sticking points. But at that point in time, did you think about like, I wanted them to just see the whole thing and get that one ending. And so we're going to hint them all the way.
No. I don't believe in stupid people having victory, so they should feel bad about themselves. And Tamron had a 65% fail rate.
We're going to help you through it, so
help you through it, but at the end we're like, it's up to you to do this, Jigsaw.
But you are at the end of the day a storyteller, and you want to make sure that everyone has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Exactly.
Hold your hand to the cliff and then just boot them off the side.
I think there is shame in the failure ending because what it mostly meant is they hadn't listened. Because that's the thing about Time Run, it wasn't hard, you just had to focus. It was never a hard game, it flowed really nicely. There was a good flow to Time Run, and provided you were just listening, and when we tried to help you, you accepted the help. We were always on your side, but at the end, we're like, we can't do this jigsaw for you. We can't do the final puzzle, only you can do it. So it's up to you to do that. And be organized and be a team. Because what would mostly happen is there'd be 4 people on this like large scale jigsaw, and there'd just be like somebody would getting pieces right, and then somebody would just moving them apart, and we're watching it on the cameras being like, no, what are you doing?
That's the old, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that was always the thing. There were difficult parts in it, but we gave you a few pieces on the board already, and if you just built around those, it was really easy.
I really like the jigsaw puzzle.
I think it's great. I'm really proud of that puzzle. I think it was really fun, really nice. Leah, who designed it, is really talented designer and thinks very well in 3D. I think that was one thing that was very nice because it wasn't just like a flat. It was the whole like model buildings that went up to here and things like that. And you had the dome of the New Berlin. And again, because we care about the difficult, like we got a book on Albert Speer's architecture to make it look like the kind of thing that Albert Speer would do. It looked a little bit very much inspired by the New Berlin. A lot of like long kind of Parisian vistas and things like that, large domes. And it was a really nice thing with a nice like central puzzle that came through right at the end. Now, again, probably me now, I would be like, everyone should win. Like that would be now because I was 26. I'm now 55 and 1,000 million years old. I was here when it was all dust, and I'll be here when you were dust. That's something I say to all the people who work for me all the time. But I was 26 when I designed Lance of Longinus. I was young and very confident, and I felt probably I was a little more black and white character than I am now, as I've softened and rounded in many ways.
I think we're a lot harder on ourselves and everyone else around us when we're younger. I was definitely that way too. Like, no, you have to earn this. And now I'm like, you know what? Get the whole ending. Like, enjoy yourself. Relax, man. You're in a game.
Sorry, I was 27 when we started Time Run, not 26. But I was 26 when we started the design of it. A little bit of a precocious boy. And I think now, having had more things under my belt, Phantom Peak, there is no win-loss, and that's something I care about. Like, that's not what it's about. And it's anti-puzzle in those kind of ways. But yeah, I wouldn't do that again. But I would probably have tried to push it so it was 65 to 70% win. I never would have got all the way there, but for example, I could have put down a few more pieces in that jigsaw at the end. That would have massively, each one probably gluing 1 or 2 more into place would have increased the win rate by 5%. Don't know why I didn't do that. Should have just done that whilst I was there. I thought about it, but I didn't. Good story.
Any thoughts about dipping your toes back into the escape room space?
You've got a few things on your plate right now.
I've got a little busy, and I do have an escape room coming. There's this like large-scale haunted house that dominates your timetable. Some would say it's been taking 5 years, but it's coming. And
talking
it's
about
costing so much.
Are you talking about Spectre and Vox? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, what other large-scale haunted house that dominates your dining table we've been talking about?
Nick, my dining room table has asked me every day for 5 years, when is the British man going to dominate me?
I'm so glad your dining table is a sub, because I am gonna dom your dining table so hard. Yeah, I'm gonna make it call me daddy. That's what I'm gonna make your dining table
on
called.
all fours, Nick.
Yeah.
It is.
All dining tables are subs, Nick, and you know this. It's a
That's
well-known
true.
fact.
All right,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
on all
taking a
fours,
turn.
begging for me to put my big pound of wood on top of it.
Do I
That's
need
what it's
to
gonna do.
leave the room?
So, to wrap this up, though, what I have to say is Lance of Longinus and Celestial Chain, which I think we'll cover in a future Spoilers Club, were astounding creations in their era. And I played this at the tail end of the run, having heard so much about it from so many people over the years. If you ask Lisa, if anyone goes and asks Lisa, what's the worst thing that I've ever done to her, she will tell you confidently it was playing Time Run without her, because it was the only way that either of us could. I was on my way to a conference in Poland, and I did a short layover in London specifically to play, which happened to overlap with a layover that Amanda Harris and Drew Nelson were doing at the exact same time. And so we played Time Run together, and it's probably the only games that I've ever played that Lisa hasn't, that she really regrets not being able to see. And I can't tell her she's wrong to feel that regret, because the games were truly beautiful.
I think from my perspective, obviously, a lot of escape room owners don't have to see their creations die. And it is a hard process. And seeing Time Run go is one of the worst experiences of my entire life. It was a formative experience in my life. It was impossible. Like it helped define me and make me into the person I am today in many different ways, for better and for worse. The closing of Time Run is something that scarred me for a very long time. And like, it's taken me a very long time to recover. And I hope that many escape room owners never have to do that. Closing a game is one thing, but closing a whole operation, not just when it's something you've done as a side hustle, but when it is something you've poured all of you that you can into it, is a suffering that I hope no creative has to do more than once in their life. I closed Phantom Peak version 1 this Saturday, and I will go through that again, and I am not looking forward to it. It is going to be awful.
Oh.
But the privilege of making these things and making Time Run and making something that still people talk about today, something that like I don't take for granted. And it is a privilege to do what we do and to play and what we do and to make people happy and to give people what they're worth their while. And I feel that Time Run, with the 150,000 or whatever it is, 120,000 people who came to it, I hope that we gave them a good time and good memories. And that even if Time Run never comes back, to live on through forms like this and the memories, the people who play it, and perhaps the legacy that in some small way it has for the escape room sector, is a gift that I do not take for granted and I treasure.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, you said you're closing Phantom Peak, but you're closing the first location and you are moving to a new one, right?
Yes. It's still going to be hard because it's still the end of something and there's a gap to be had, and that's tough because there are lots of people who there's not going to be a job for months, things like that, who been integral to the company and integral to the experience, just like there was between, even though a lot of the same people came between Time Run and Sherlock, the game is now the experience that one of the experiences that came after Time Run. But it's still hard because although you go on to bigger and better things, there is always a loss somewhere. No matter what you do, there's always something that is different. And that doesn't mean it's wrong. But in the end, what is happening is a place is vanishing. A place is going. Time Run was not just a game to me, it was a place. It was a place that I got to make. That I got to make for people to go to. And that's always what I love making, is places. And I feel that's the great thing about escape rooms. You get to make places for people to have fun. And then another place is vanishing across the narrative of my 39 years life, and another place that I poured my heart into. But Time Run obviously was amazing, and what I hope to do, like at some point, is to come and talk about the second game at some point, because Time Run it wasn't just one game, it wasn't just one experience, it wasn't just one place. It was the second game, the Celestial Chain, which I'm sure at some point we'll talk again about, was another experience that was very complex, very interesting, and in some ways is more complex and interesting than Lance of Longinus, I think.
I would say so, and I also think we'll get into it when we dig into Celestial. Lance of Longinus was ahead of its time in a way that excited people, and broadly speaking, the escape room enthusiast community embraced with an abundance of warmth. Celestial Chain was ahead of its time in ways that most people were not ready to accept, and that led to a lot of other problems. But I think Celestial Chain would be beloved today in a way that it wasn't quite so beloved in its day.
I 100% agree. And the one thing I would like to say about Celestial, can I touch on it? Again, this is a teaser, listeners. Just, enjoy it. This is our Marvel post-credit scene. Celestial Chain will return. It's not being built again. But the thing about Celestial Chain is Celestial Chain was designed to solve even more problems about the sector. Even more problems that I saw. And some would say that thinking you can solve the problems of the sector with pipelining in the first thing and a new format for your second game you've ever designed is hubris beyond hubris. And yes, but I'm a very hubristic person. Like, that is just in the nature of who I am. I constantly believe that I should try and push the envelope and do the thing that I think is the best, both for myself, but for the businesses and for the sector, to try and do things that other people haven't done. But Celestial Chain is, for me, one of the most important things that ever happened to me as a creative and as a creator. And I think that more creatives and creators in the sector should experience something like it. Because from an enthusiast point of view, they hated it and they were really mean to me. And it was great.
And they were wrong.
No, it doesn't matter if they were wrong or right. But it matters that people felt I should apologize for that game. And what it made me like, I'm a humble person. I know people may not think I'm a humble person, but I do take on feedback and I do care what people think. And also, I know I'm not perfect. And I think a lot of the creators in the space only had hit after hit where they're doing effectively the same high-end, high-spec game over and over again with more and more budget. They're not taking those big risks. And taking that big risk, it made me a better designer, a better person in many ways. And I think Celestial Chain is something I absolutely am so glad I did. And I didn't do just what people wanted, which is Lance of Longinus 2.
We'll explore this next time we bring Icarus back to the Spoilers Club.
Well, that was wonderful, Nick. Thank you so much for joining us. I really loved hearing about this. And now I can't wait to hear about Celestial Chain.
It's all in your hands when I come back, not mine. So I don't know why you're putting it on me. It's your podcast, guys. And you invited me. So can't wait to hear. Yeah, okay. All right, let's open up the diaries now, shall we? No, you don't want to do that because you're busy, important people.
The door is open, Nick.
Me sick.
Whenever you want to come rant.
Oh, whenever you want to come back.
Come
now.
Rant
Let's do
anytime.
it right now. Let's do a double.
Anytime, let's go. Not now.
Oh, I see. Interesting how the goalposts have shifted so easily.
All right, that's it for Nick, folks. Until next time.
Scumbags.
Get the hook out.
Scumbags.
Yeah, get the hook. Patrons, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let us know if you want to hear more from Nick. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for being part of our Spoilers Club level. Let us know if there's anything else you want to hear about. Until then, we will catch you in the next episode.
Spoilers Club!